Good morning, everyone. All right, so you thought you got out of being with me today, but guess what? I'm still coming to you video style. All right, so we're going to be talking about the powers of 10. So first of all, let's go ahead and review. So I hope you have your whiteboard out and your marker and you're ready to go. So the powers of 10. We've been talking about 10 to the first power. So I want you to write that on your whiteboard and then right beside it what that equals. All right? Hopefully you wrote 10. All right? This power number or this exponent tells me that there's 1 0. So 10 to the first power is 10. Okay, what about 10 to the second power? Write it on your whiteboard. All right, this power tells me that there's going to be 2 zeros or 100. I can also write that as 10 times 10. 2 tens. Remember, that tells me how many times it's going to be multiplied times itself. 10 to the third power. Third power tells me 3 zeros. Count them. 1, 2, 3, or 1,000. We can also write that as an equation. 10 times 10 times 10. All right. Hopefully you're writing these on your whiteboard. How are you doing? Okay? Well, I hope so. All right. 10 to the fourth power. There's our superpower. All right, so it tells us how many zeros? 1, 2, 3, 4, 10,000. Or we can write that. Remember, this tells us how many times it's going to be times itself. 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. All right, so there is our mini review of the powers of 10. Okay, so how do we use this information? Well, we've been multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. So I have my little chart up here, and this place value chart is going to help me in order to multiply and divide by the powers of 10. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase my board. If you need to continue looking at this, remember, you've got notes. Open up your binder. All right, so I'm going to erase with my hand eraser. All right, are you ready to go? So let's take a number like 2, and go ahead and write this on your whiteboard. 2 and 64 hundredths. Okay, if I want to multiply this times, let's go ahead and do times 100. Okay, now let me think about that. So if this was written as a power of 10, what would that be? I know, 2 zeros, that would be 10 to the second power, right? Okay, so you can write that, we could write that either way. We could write 100 there, or we could write 10 to the second power. So we're multiplying, so we're going to make this number bigger. So we want to move these, we're going to move the decimal or move these numbers to the left to make the number bigger. So we've got to move it 2 places. So let me flip my hundreds over here. So I've got to move this 2 over 2 places. So I'm going to be moving it 1, 2, so it's going to go here. So I'm going to move it those 2 places. I'm going to move the 6 2 places, 1, 2. I'm going to move the 4 2 places, 1, 2. And my decimal still stays here. All right, so now when I multiply 2 and 64 hundredths times 100, you can see on this number chart how it moves. It moved 2 places. Now the zeros, if it's written in this fashion, we take the 2 zeros and we know that's how we move it 2 places. Here, this exponent tells me to move it 2 places. So now I know that this 100, when we multiply this number by 100, the answer is going to be 264. Okay? Notice how I'm using this place value chart to move the numbers. All right. So let's try this with another number. And again, I'm going to have to use my hand eraser. All right. Okay, so let's do 3 and 964 thousandths. All right, and this time let's multiply that times 1,000. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I'm going to move this 3 places. Now mine's this time it's going to go off the chart here. So I can put a T over here for thousands. But I want to move this, and that's why I hesitated a little bit, because I don't have that thousands there. But I want to move this 3 places. So this time, because I got 1, 2, 3, this is also 10 to the 3rd power. Okay. All right. So we can move this 1, 2, 3 places over to the thousands. We're going to move this 9 3 places, 1, 2, 3, so it goes to the hundreds. Move this 3 places, 1, 2, 3, that's 6 moves to the tens. And then move the 4 3 places, 1, 2, 3. All right. So this becomes, we've got 3 and 964 thousandths times 1,000 becomes 3,964. All right. Do you see how I'm using this place value chart to move my numbers, manipulate my numbers in order to multiply them by a power of 10? All right. So now you should have your problem set. And if the problem set hasn't been passed out yet, if you would pause the video and pass that out and get that all ready. I'm going to move mine up here. And I'm going to take a look to make sure I don't need to zoom in so you can see it better. Oh yeah, I need to zoom in here. So give me just a minute here. And while I'm zooming in, you can get your paper all ready and do this with me. All right, so you'll notice that there is a place value chart there on your paper, just like I had up above on my whiteboard. So on here, you know these little places right here? So these places stand for the place value chart places. So we could go ahead and write those in. We could write in, now I'm looking here at this decimal, so this is going to be tenths. This is going to be hundredths. Now remember, you need that TH because it's after the decimal. That TH means less than a whole, smaller than a whole. This is going to be thousandths. That's going to run off the side there. And then we've got ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. And that's just going to be a point of reference for us. And so we don't have to write it down in the other places because we can just refer back to this. But I think that's helpful to have so we can see exactly how we're maneuvering these numbers and where they start and then where they end up. All right, so to begin with, they have 3 and 452 thousandths times 10. Now right away I know that that's 10 to the 1st power because I look at that and I see that there's 1 0, so it's to the 1st power. So all of these numbers, when I write them down, we've got 3 and, I can put my decimal there, 3 and 452 thousandths. That's my original number. Now, when they shift, they're going to shift 1 place because when you multiply something times 10, it moves only 1 place. So the 3 that is in the ones, when we draw that arrow, it moves to the tens. The tenths move 1 place to the ones, and it's shifting this direction because it's getting bigger. We know that the number is getting bigger because we're multiplying. So that 5 in the hundredths shifts to the tenths. The 2 in the thousandths is going to shift to the hundredths. So then this is my new number, and I notice that's what they wrote down in the example. So the new number is 34 and 52 hundredths. All right? So that example was already done for us. That we can definitely see how it moves one place and how the 1, 0, or if we wrote it 10 to the first power, we would know that that power number or the exponent tells us how to shift that number. So we go on to the second one, and I notice that they're going with a pattern, kind of like what we did yesterday. So they started off by multiplying times 10, and now they're multiplying times 100. Now, there's 1, 2 zeros, so I know that that's also 10 to the second power. So I'm going to write my original number in here again. So I've got 3 and 452 thousandths. And remember, I can refer back to the chart up there in order to best read my number. Okay, so now I know that I'm going to be shifting this 2 places. So I'm going to be shifting this. This is the ones, and it's going to shift, and it's going to go to the tens and then to the hundreds because it's got to shift twice. And the number's getting bigger, so it's got to go this direction. It's got to go to the left. So I've got 3, and then I'm shifting my 4 2 places. 1, 2, and that's going to be in the tens. So it was in the tenths. It's moving past the ones and into the tens. Now I'm moving my 5 2 places. 1, 2. And I'm moving the 2 2 places. 1, 2. So that 2 that's in the thousandths is going to end up in the tenths. So now my new number is 345 and 2 tenths. So 345 and 2 tenths. Now you notice yesterday we were moving the decimal. Today we're moving the numbers. Now, just like with our number talks, these are 2 different strategies. Use whichever strategy you like best. I'm just giving you another tool in your tool belt for your skills. So I just wanted to comment on that. All right, so now we've got that same original number times 1,000. Now we've got 1, 2, 3 zeros, so that's the same as 10 to the third power. So let's write our original number in there. 3 and 452 thousandths. And this time it's going to shift 3 places. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3. It's going to go all the way over here. This time the tenths is going to shift 3 places. 1, 2, 3. The 5 is going to shift 3 places. 1, 2, 3. And then the 2 is going to shift 3 places. 1, 2, 3. And my pen is not cooperating. All right, let's grab another thing here. All right, this will work. Marker will cooperate. All right. So, and remember, my decimal now is at the end of the number. It's an understood decimal because we don't have to write it. 3,452 is the answer, and the decimal is actually behind there. But a lot of times when we write a whole number, we aren't going to put the decimal. So that decimal is kind of optional. So the next question wants you to take a look at the pattern that you see. And it says, explain how and why the value of the 5 changed. So why did the 5 change? Well, let's take a look. Here we multiplied it times 10, the number times 10. And it shifted from the hundredths to the tenths. Here it shifted from the hundredths to the ones. Here it shifted all the way to the tens. So each time it moved 1 place. Well, why did it move 1 place? So each time we added a greater power of 10, the 5 shifted one more place. Okay, so each time we added a greater power of 10. So the first time when we had a power of 10, just 10, it shifted one place because there was 1 0. So that told us to go one place. When it was 100, it shifted 2 places. There were 2 zeros, so it shifted 2 places. When there were 3 zeros, or 10 to the 3rd power, we had to shift the number 3 places. So it ended up 3 places away from where it was before. 3 places greater than it was before. Now, how is this going to play out if we were to divide these numbers instead? Well, let's look at some examples of the division. And if I'm going too fast, the video can always be paused for a minute so that you all can get caught up. I know I tend to go fast when I'm on these videos. So this time we're going to be looking at dividing by powers of 10. Now, if multiplication and division are truly opposites of one another, then that should give you a clue of what we're going to do when we divide by a power of 10. So here we go. This time we're going to be taking the number 345 and dividing by powers of 10. So we're going to start off with 345 here in the place value chart. And they're showing you dividing by 10. Remember, division gets smaller. The numbers are going to get smaller. So we're shifting them instead to the right. Okay? So we've got 345. And when we divide by 10, we move it one place to the right. So now, here it was in the hundreds. Here's the tens, the ones, tenths. Just going to write these in. You don't have to write these in. I just think that maybe it would be helpful. There's hundredths and thousandths. So you can see how it shifts. Okay? So we're moving it from the 3 from the hundreds to the tens, the 4 from the tens to the ones. See how it's getting smaller? It was $345. Now it looks like $34 and then 50 cents. So we're moving the 5 then to the tenths place. So if you look at this and kind of think money, you can see, well, gosh, yeah, it is. It certainly is getting smaller by one place. It's moving back. All right, well, what if it's dividing by 100? Well, this time it's going to move 2 places. So let me go ahead and write my number again, 345. Now I've got to move it back 2 places. So I've got to go 1, 2, and that 3 is going to go here. So it's going to start at the hundreds and it's going to end at the ones. Where's the 4 going to go? Well, it's got to go back 2 places too. So it's going to go through the ones and end up in the tenths. The 5 is going to go 1, 2 places. So it's going to end up in the hundredths. Well, what if we take our original number and this time divide it by 1,000? Well, this time there are 3 zeros, so I know that's 10 to the 3rd power. So this time, since we're dividing it by 1,000, we have to take it back 3 places. So it's 1, 2, 3. So the 3 is going to end up in the tenths place. The 4, 1, 2, 3 is going to end up in the hundredths. And the 5, 1, 2, 3 is going to end up in the thousandths. So you can see the difference here. 345 is a whole number. This now is 345 thousandths. So it's a much different number. So take a look here at the pattern. Now the pattern this time is because it's dividing, the number is getting smaller. And so it says here, explain how and why the value of the 4 in the quotients, how it changed. Well, the 4 changed depending on the power of 10 you were dividing by. Now, what I mean by that is if you've got the power of 10, that 4 shifted one place. When it was the power of 10 to the second power, it moved 2 places. When it was 10 to the third power, or 1,000, it moved 3 places. So it depended on the power of 10 that you were dividing by how that 4 changed. Each time, though, it did get smaller. So you could even write each time it got smaller because we were dividing, or because we divided. So that would be the how and why. So the 4 changed depending on the power of 10 you were dividing by. Each time it got smaller because we divided. Okay? All right. So on your last page, we have some story problems to go over. So these story problems take the information that we just learned and we're applying it to real life problems. So we're going to take a look at the first one, and then I'm going to have you pause the video and look at the 4th and the 5th one and try those. I'll read them to you, and then you're going to pause the video and try them and then come back. All right, so number 3, a manufacturer made 7,234 boxes of coffee stirrers. Wow, that's a lot of coffee stirrers. Each box contains 1,000 stirrers. How many stirrers did they make? Explain your thinking and include a statement of solution. All right, so here's my thinking. So I'm thinking about this, acting this out. So I've got 7,234 boxes. So I want you to imagine that. A room full of boxes. 7,234 boxes. Now that's not something I could draw, but I could think about, and I know what 100 boxes looks like. Gosh, that would be 7,234. That would be a whole lot of boxes. So inside each box, there's 1,000 stirrers. So if you have just one box, you're going to have 1,000 stirrers. But I'm looking at 7,234 boxes. So I'm thinking about this. Are my stirrers, am I multiplying or am I dividing? So will my number get bigger? Because I've got 7,234 boxes. So I know I'm going to do something to that number. So let me look here and see, and you guys can look at your clue words. So I'm looking here for one of my clue words. And, oh, here it is, each. Underline the word each. So when it says each, what am I going to do? Am I going to multiply or am I going to divide? Oh, I know. Each means multiply. So I've got 7,234. I've got 1,000 stirrers, so I'm going to multiply. All right, so let me count. 1, 2, 3. So this is like 10 to the third power. Now, this looks ginormous. It looks like it's going to be really hard. However, if I take this, I've got 1, 2, 3 places I've got to move this, okay? So I'm going to take this number. I'm going to rewrite it. I have to add 3 places. And remember, when we're moving that number on the number line, that's what we're doing. We're adding places. So I've got to add 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 places. Oh my goodness. Look at how many stirs there are. Geez, that's a lot. Okay, explain your thinking and include a statement of solution. Well, if we know that this is 10 to the 3rd power, and we know that when we have to the 3rd power, we have to move 3 places. This is getting bigger because we're multiplying. So that's how we know. Okay, so we have to explain our thinking. Well, we just talked out our thinking and include a statement of solution. So the manufacturer made 7,234,000 stirs. That's a whole lot of stirs. A whole lot of coffee that can be had. All right, so it's really important for you to look for the key words, because you're not going to know what you need to do unless you look at the key words. The other thing you need to do, I kind of acted it out a little bit. I was thinking about the boxes, and I was thinking, okay, if one box has 1,000 stirs and there are 7,234 boxes, obviously my number 7,234 is going to get bigger. So obviously I'm going to be multiplying. Then I found the key word each, and it solidified, because of our clue words, it solidified that I'm going to be multiplying those. Okay? All right. So let's go on to number 4. If you need to, we can always pause. Okay. A student used his place value chart to show a number. After the teacher instructed him to multiply his number by 10, the chart showed 3,204 tenths. Draw a picture of what the place value chart looked like at first. All right, so after he multiplied times 10, so he had some number times 10, and then he got this. So I'm going to go ahead and write some number times 10 equals 3,204 tenths. So I know these numbers are going to be in there. So when he multiplied times 10, is this number going to be bigger or smaller? Well, I know that when he's going from here to here, the number gets bigger. So if I go the opposite direction, what's going to happen to that number? Oh, it's going to get smaller, right? Okay, so let's put this new number right here. 3,204. Oh, great. The teacher made a mistake. Oh, well, you know. All right, so the number, when he multiplied, the number got bigger. So the number went this way. The numbers went this way. So if we multiply times 10, and we know that this number is going to be smaller than this number, we have to move it back. So we have to move the 3 here, the 2 here, 0 here, 0 here, and the 4 here. So now I've got the 3 in the tens. So the original number is going to be 3 in the tens, 3 in the hundreds, 2 in the tens, 0 in the ones, 0 in the tenths, and 4 in the hundredths. So now, let me go ahead and check and make sure that that's my original number. How could I check? Well, I could plug that in and say, well, what is that times 10? What does that equal? Well, if it's times 10, it's going to get bigger, and my decimal is going to move over here, right? It's going to move this way to make this number bigger. So this would be 3,204 tenths. So that's my way to check it. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the microscope. Okay, so a microscope has a setting that magnifies an object so it appears 100 times as large. Well, 100 times as large. I'm going to underline that. That seems like it's going to be important. When viewed through the eyepiece. We've got a tiny insect that is 95 thousandths centimeters long. How long will the insect appear in centimeters through the microscope? All right, so we have a tiny insect that is 95 thousandths of a centimeter. Talk about tiny. Good gracious. And we multiply that times 100, and that'll tell us how big he appears. Times that right there, that's my clue. So how am I going to move this to make this, to tell the answer? How am I going to move this? Well, I'm going to look, 1, 2. I've got to move it 2 places. So if I move this decimal 2 places, I've got 1, 2. So if I move it 2 places, I could also do it in a chart. I don't have a chart written down here, but if you like the idea of writing a chart, you can always get out the place value chart from inside your desk and put this in there and actually move it 2 places over, just like we did up above. Okay, so if we move it 1, 2 places, we've got 9 and 5/10 centimeters. Now, when you're looking at things in the microscope during science class, you'll notice that things, when you look at them before you put them under the microscope, they look really, really small. Then when you put it under the microscope, and you can even shift it, and it can go 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times the size of the original object. So notice that we moved it 1, 2 times because there's 1, 2 zeros. Okay, so this is manipulating powers of 10. All right, so as you are working, and you're going to have your quiz today, as you are working, you can use this paper, you can use your notes, you can use whatever you need to in order to get the right answers, but no calculator. So don't pull that one. All right? So I want you to do your best, work hard, and I will see you during intervention today. All right. Catch you later.